Welcome to the craziest and wildest AITA Reddit stories. From explosive family drama to shocking twists, these jaw-dropping tales will keep you hooked, questioning who's truly in the wrong. The first story is from Bill, according 4919. AITA for drifting away from my MIL. I, 22F, got married to my husband, 28M, 2 years ago. We both had met online around 3 years ago. 100% compatible, and we're both neurodivergent. Autism, ADHD, OCD. Anyways, we're both also not very religious people. However, his family was a different religious sect from my family. My family isn't very religious or cares about sects, but his mom was a bit upset back then about him liking me. She had tried to get him to look at her friend's daughter for a marriage proposal after he had told her he liked me and wanted to marry me. Anyways, we eventually got married. I moved out of my country to live with him and his parents in a different country. He had asked me if I wanted to live separately, but since I was already out of sect, I wanted to not come off as worse and thought that it's just the parents, so I might as well live together with them. That's when we started having more issues. First, she subtly enforces hijab on me. I never wore it before, and everyone including my husband and his family knew about it. By constantly giving me the outfits I had to wear along with a hijab scarf, so I did wear it because, again, didn't want to come off as the bad decision of a wife if I said no. I wore it to please her and her alone, which I shouldn't have done. But again, I'm autistic, so it's hard for me to also communicate, as my main mode of communication, even with my husband, is through Notes app. Then she enrolls me into a weekly sect class to learn the new ways. And I go along with it too. I also work full-time to support my own family, which my husband was aware of and supports 100%. It was okay for a few weeks, but then it started getting tiring. Then we constantly had issues over her getting disappointed in me and my husband over us sleeping in late. We work remote, and our work starts around 4 to 5 p.m., local time up till 6 to 7 a.m., so then we need the sleep during the day. MIL would complain we didn't spend time with her. She also has a friend circle BTW and has no job. I tried to get her into hobbies like photography and writing, but she also didn't enjoy doing it without me actively being there with her. Then she also tries to compromise about the sleeping situation by saying that her son can sleep in her room again in the morning. She just wants to see her kids around her, but she expected me to be up and sit in the lounge outside both of our rooms. It frustrated me that as soon as my husband and I woke up, I wouldn't even get to hug him or talk to him. He would already be out the door to go sleep in his mom's room. Also, for more context, she's never been openly aggressive with me like shouting, taunting in front of husband, etc. Anyways, at that point, I started feeling worse about the hijab. I'm autistic and I have severe sensory issues. I can't even wear headphones, collared shirts, anything that touches my neck and ears basically. If I do it for a long time, I start crying, have an autistic meltdown, and would need at least 2 days at home to recharge. I thought maybe talking to her about my sensory issues, autism, etc., would make her understand me more and feel happy that I opened up to her. I told her all that, and how I didn't want to wear it anymore, so she just says, "But I would prefer if you wore it, the rest is up to you." Which isn't her directly saying no, but to me, it felt like it the way it's, "But I would prefer," despite hearing my struggles mentally and physically. Either way, after talking to my husband about it several times, I ended up dropping it around a year later. But again, there's constant issues with her complaining me, and husband don't spend enough time with her due to our work hours. Sometimes I wouldn't be in the mood to eat right away at dinner due to my IBS issues as well. And I also feel comfortable eating where people can't see me. I've been like that since way before getting married, and my husband understands that too, but she still forced me to sit at the dining table. Then there would also be constant issues with her and me if I ever used my phone for work or to text my mom, who I only call once a week or two, around her. She would say, after getting married, a girl's priorities should change according to her new family. That would be enough to make me stop using my phone around her. Then once a girl comes over to our house, a guest, to stay over for the night because of some layover flight, we have dinner with her. She goes to the guest room to sleep. Mother-in-law, husband and I are in a different room now, and MIL tells me, "BTW, this girl liked your husband a lot. She wanted to get married to him, but your husband wasn't interested. I didn't tell you this before, so you would not feel insecure." I took that as normal, but twice other times we were both alone and away from my husband. She would go on a long discussion about how she loves that girl. She's social. She gets along with everyone. She goes to university and is a good student. I couldn't go to college due to working early on in life. On and on. So that came off as very comparing to me. Later on, she even had issues with the contraceptive me and my husband decided to use. Birth control pills. She came into our room, saw a medicine bag with those inside it, and asked me who got this. I told her we visited a gynae. She recommended this one. But she forced me to go to her gynae instead, with her in the same room. When we came back, my husband told her, "We're fine with the gynae we go to, and the method we prefer." And they both ended up having a shouting match in the car on the way home. I had frozen up in the front seat next to my husband and cried because she kept saying, "Why don't you tell your husband that she is a very good doctor? She didn't say anything wrong?" She had later complained to husband, "You shout at me, but you've never done that with your wife before." Then later, once I had messed up some crypto transfer thing, and my husband told me, "You should have asked me how to do it. You know I would always help you." And I cried, because I've always been a hyper-independent person before him. So I felt overwhelmed hearing that from him. The whole day I felt overwhelmed, and he kept trying to cheer me up and make me feel good again. Later that night, I go down to the kitchen after spending the whole day in my room, and my MIL says, "Stop stressing him out with your emotions. It's not a big deal. Husbands and wives fight all the time. You can't be this sensitive." Followed by a few days later, when she's moody and tells my husband, it's his responsibility to look after her emotions. Also, she had asked me, "Does your husband do guzel, act of ablution, after you guys have a sex?" Which shocked me. Then she's also been pretty adamant on buying husband's underwears all the time. I tried to tell her, maybe send me the link where you get them from. I'll get them myself the next time. While also thanking her to not come off as rude, but she still keeps getting them for him. Anyways, at one point, I really needed to move out, because there was an issue every 3 to 4 days. My husband was getting stressed, because he was acting like a messenger between us, and was in a very bad position in his job with toxic co-workers, etc. We had discussed moving out several times her before, so it doesn't come off as a shocker. But she always thought it as something selfish. Once we started looking at apartments, we liked this one place. I tell my husband to share it in the family group chat so they all feel included and say how we want to visit it again and look at the new place with them and hear their thoughts. She completely blew up over that. The issue lasted for another month or two. Anyways, we still ended up moving out. But before moving, because I didn't want to come off as the DIL who drags the son away, I told her we'll visit every day since we live 10 minutes away. I thought maybe just visiting for tea in the evening for an hour would be perfect, but she expected daily visits, at least 4 to 5 hours long, have lunch and dinner with her. At first, I used to go, but then I had too many chores to do at our own house instead, plus freshly moved in, so a lot of unpacking and settling down. I would go every 2 days then. But I still told my husband to go instead. But then it started feeling bad at one point, when he would be over at her house, first thing in the morning, when we had just gotten our first place together. I had dreamed of waking up with him, be calm, have breakfast together, and feel safe, but it felt like MIL was still around all the time. If I ever didn't go, she would make sure to call or text me, asking why, or she would tell my husband, "I miss her, she should have come with you as well." And it really stressed me out. Only once, I didn't go for 4 days in a row, because I had completely shut down plus a lot of chores and my own work piling up. And she complained to my husband asking, "What's wrong? Is she mad at me? Why isn't she coming?" Then, when I visit her again, she hugs me and says, "You are my daughter too. I want you to come over with him as well." Which on the surface seems very sweet. But if I'm her daughter, then I would have loved it if she understood me like one too. Anyways, she's also had this habit of always demanding full outfit pics of what I wear when we're out, or if we're on a trip without her. We attended a wedding recently, and I had sent her a pic of me and my husband, waist up. And she still asks on call, "Full outfit pic? Oh, you didn't wear the other one? I've never seen this one before. Please show me when you're back from the trip." And something inside me just snapped that day. We were on a trip for our 2nd anniversary, so it triggered me that she was calling daily. I stopped texting plus calling her, but when my husband called her, I would talk enthusiastically on the calls every day, every 2 days. But when he left for a quick 2-day trip from that vacation place for a work thing, she texts me, "I haven't talked with her, it's unlike me, etc., etc." I told her I had just talked with her on call with her son 2 days back, and she just says, "But it's nice to also have you text me personally." I remember I broke down and cried a lot the entire night, and lost my appetite. I further didn't call or text her again, because it further made me push her away more. Then a day later, my mom calls me and asks me if everything's okay with my MIL, and I say, "Yeah, why? I never tell my mom about these issues." And she tells me she found it weird that when my MIL called her a month or two back, she said, "Your daughter is very introverted. She always cages herself. And my husband was asking if we can do something that would make up for whatever she lacked from a father in her childhood to help her grow." Which again is a very weird thing to say, because I've been self-sufficient since I was 16, plus supporting my family of 5, all on my own. I tell her it's fine, nothing's wrong. I tell my husband about this because it was a WTF thing for me. He says that's weird. Why would she say that? Then he asks if we can call my mom and ask her again in case there was a misunderstanding. I said fine. We call her. She said it did happen, but then also advises us to not stress, cover each other up in front of other people, not argue with each other, and ruin our relationship over a third person, set boundaries, live a calm life, etc., etc. He recorded the call and sent it to his mom, who still denied whatever she said, and said it's a toxic, unhealthy mindset my mom has about setting boundaries, plus no family obligation, which she never said in that way, because till this day, my mom is very involved with her in-laws. We had a flight back home, our car was at their house, plugged on charge, so we get a taxi from the airport to go to their house. Husband went in to say hi to the parents. It was also 3 a.m. I told him I'll meet them in a day or two. I needed to unwind, and I know she would have put me on the spot to talk about everything right then and there. 40 to 45 minutes later, he comes out with his mom, and she hugs, and I feel ambushed. I can't even smile. I hug her back, but I can't talk. I sit back in the car. On the way back, he's all stressed out and in a bad mood. I'm crying. For the first time in 2 years, he got mad at me and said, "Can you stop making my life a living hell and just get along with her?" I just froze. I couldn't move. I couldn't leave the car when we arrived back at our apartment. I felt like I wasn't in my own body. It was weird, and I was still processing how I was happy that we had never in our life ever argued, disagreed, or let alone fought before. Now we're doing it all over a third person, not even over personal issues with each other. We're going to start couples therapy now. We were supposed to do family therapy with MIL, but I told him I can't do it because then it'll feel like I'm on one side and you and your mom are on a different team. Or he'll also feel pressured to either side with his mom or his wife, which I understand from his perspective. Plus, we both have severe issues with setting boundaries and easily being guilt-tripped, so we needed couples therapy for that first to at least work on our issues first and be able to represent a united front. I just need to know if I've done anything wrong, or if I could have done things differently in any way, which would have completely avoided this situation at hand. I'm constantly worried about my marriage falling apart and not being able to do anything about it, and also worried about having resentment for my husband as an extension of resentment towards my MIL. OP is not an AH, rather her toxic mother-in-law is an AH for continuously invading her privacy, and her husband is also an AH for not supporting her. OP is completely justified for setting her boundaries. As for scores, I would rate OP's mother-in-law 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. Let's now move on to the next story from an amazing_metal_1314. AITA for telling my roommate that she is not my responsibility and I don't owe her anything? I became roommates in a 3x2 apartment with some previous friends. I will refer to them as Amelia, 20F, and Isabella, 21F. For the past 3 months, I have been screwed over multiple times. A $125 Sam's Club visit that neither paid me back for, borrowing cash to go out, and never being paid back for, breaking my makeup when borrowed, not returning clothes that they have borrowed. The one that irks me the most is the amount I drive them around. They don't have cars, and I've driven Amelia to class twice a week for a whole semester, and driven them home for breaks, grocery store visits, home from night outs, and other people's houses. I drive them around constantly. They have never offered me gas money. Now I know I should ask for it. And that's on me. My therapist tells me all the time, here's where the problem started, and I may be the in my baby steps, attempt to start setting boundaries and saying no. I stopped offering to drive them places or let them use my things when they would bait me to allow them to instead of asking. I bring another friend to the grocery store, and she asks and always buys me coffee as payment. I recently started going with her and waiting for my roommates to ask me. Isabella has begun to ask when she needs to go, and I only offer to bring them to the grocery store that is a 5-minute drive away. They don't give me gas money, so we aren't going far or to places where they need my membership card to check out. Thus, They want to do it together. And I end with the tab. Amelia isn't available when Isabella and I are available. For some reason, she won't allow us to find some compromise. This has happened twice now, and we went without her. Isabella offered to get the things Amelia needed, and I did not because Amelia was the one who had never even tried to pay me back. She has made a massive deal about how her other friend had to bring her. She then asked me if she could drive my car to the grocery store when she couldn't go with us. And I said hell no, which upset her, and apologized for being crass, but she was out of line for even asking. This has been boiling and is now bubbling over today. About a week ago, Amelia was baiting me to let her use my shampoo and conditioner, going on and on about how expensive shampoo and conditioner are and how she's so broke. I didn't bite. She continued for the next couple of days, and I didn't say she could use mine, and I put them in my room. My shampoo is costly, and I use it sparingly because of that. I wash my hair once a week, and my roommate washes hers daily. I had a gut feeling that after she borrowed my lotion until it was gone, she would do the same to my shampoo and conditioner. She finally outright asked me, and I said no. She got upset and didn't talk to me for a day or two. This is how she would guilt me into letting her use my stuff. She would always talk about how lucky I am to have the things I have. Most of my clothes, makeup, and shoes have been purchased by myself. She talks about her upbringing and how she could never afford the things that I have. A single mother raised me and was by no means rich and barely lower middle class. I got a job when I was 15 and devoted much more time than I should have as a young teen to work since then. I've had multiple jobs at once and insane hours because I like nice things. I paid for pretty much everything I have except for my car. I am very grateful for my car, and that's why I don't have a problem with taking time out of my day to drive people around. I know that it is a luxury. I drive co-workers home, my other friends to work, etc. Everyone besides my roommates either offers gas money or some sort of payment through food or drinks. I rarely take the gas money. Their offering is enough for me. So, here's where the confrontation started. I was doing my laundry, and she asked me why I was using her detergent purchased by ME when we went to Sam's Club. It set me over my limit, and I listed all the shared in our apartment that was purchased by me. They use it, including but not limited to toilet paper, paper towels, laundry and dish detergent, trash bags, candles and wax melters, the vacuum, and all the condiments in the apartment. She threw her other friend, having to drive her to the grocery store, the length of my showers, how loud I am going into my room after I'm off work, and anything she could say to and moan. That's when I told her she could go and buy her and I wasn't going to share anything of mine with her. I told her how much money she owed me from borrowing it. I told her she needed to give me the pillows I purchased when we went on that Sam's Club trip, and she needed to provide me with anything she had ever borrowed from me. Amelia said that because we are roommates, I'm supposed to do all this stuff. I told her that her going to the grocery store was not my problem, and I didn't owe her anything, so she could stop using my. She said that I was a raging and arrogant. Our other roommate is staying out of it, but I overheard them talking when they didn't realize I was home. I've asked some of my friends, and they don't think I'm the. But mutual friends said that I should be the one to drive her places, and sharing stuff is all a part of being roommates. And when I don't offer to bring them when I'm going with my other friend is rude. So, AITA, is this something I should try to return from? We don't cross paths with busy class schedules and how much I work. Edit to the why are you still roommates with them or the advice to move out entirely? We live in a college apartment, meaning all of our leases are to our individual rooms, and it's an 11-month lease. Total scam. But I live in a college town, and that's how most, if not all, the apartment housing is around my college. If I could get out of it, I definitely would. I talked to my leasing office, but they said to break the lease would be 2 months' rent, and that's just insane. I'd rather have a tense living situation than be out $2,000. OP is not an H for setting her boundaries. Her roommates, Amelia and Isabella, are AHs for taking advantage of her. OP is clear in her demands. She is not rude or selfish for demanding her borrowed things back. So I would rate OP 0, and OP's roommates 2 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Short and Skinny. AITA, for getting a woman at the rental office fired? I, 26F, don't have a green thumb. Like I'm so bad at growing indoor plants, but I figured maybe I can start out with keeping weeds like dandelions because they're resilient and won't die on me, and you can eat them. So, there are plenty of dandelion weeds scattered throughout the grounds of my apartment complex, and I figured I'd go to the office and get permission to scoop up one of the weeds. So, I did. And the lady was very matter-of-factly like, no, that is, company name, property. I'm autistic, so I ask a lot of clarifying questions that can be seen as argumentative, but I wasn't trying to be. I was just trying to understand the full extent of her reasoning, because to me they already have the gardeners pull the weeds anyways. And if there's a reason why maybe they prefer the gardeners pull the weeds rather than tenants like me, because that information can help future decision-making on related matters, and is also something I can relay to my neighbors, which I have a good relationship with. So like, if I see one of them doing the same thing, I can warn them. And she seemed to be irritated when I asked questions, never really answered them, and was like, it's property, so no, that's the only reason you need. And I'm like, okay, got it. Which would have been fine if I didn't already uproot one from between the sidewalk and the cobblestone of the turnabout in front of the mailboxes. That was my bad for assuming she'd say yes. If I was going to ask permission anyways, I should have just waited until after she gave me the go-ahead. So, the honest thing to do was to tell her what I did, which I did, and I apologized, and showed her the uprooted dandelion, which was the length of my hand roots and all. She told me to stay there, and that I was in trouble, and so, I did. And I was apologizing, and I felt so bad. I even offered to put it back, but she said no. So I'm standing there with an uprooted dandelion in my hand, and she's calling other people, telling them what I did, and whether or not to deduct that from my rent costs, etc. And this wasn't mature of me, but I started to tear up. I wasn't crying, I was just tearing up due to mild distress. So now she's telling them on the phone that I'm crying and making a scene, and I was trying not to, and I asked if I could use the bathroom and wipe my face, and she said no. And I'm not making any noise, I'm just standing there and making sniffing noises. This older man comes in, and I guess he was picking up mail from the office, and asked what was going on. And I told him because she couldn't, because she was on the phone. And he stood there with me. He had to have been in his 50s. When she got off the phone, he started arguing with her, telling her to let me go, and it kind of escalated from there. And he started offering money to make up for it. I was stuck there for like 30 minutes with her and this guy, and people were coming in and out of the office, as the other receptionist was helping them watching it all go down. I don't know how it ended up escalating this far, but the guy who owned the rental office, Mr. H, stopped by because someone let him know what was happening, and he asked me what happened, and I was kind of a coward in that moment, and asked the lady to explain which was a big mistake. She literally was telling him I vandalized the property and ripped out flowers, but made it seem like I went for the display flowers, like the fancy ones that they grew in front of the sign. Mr. H asked to see it, and when I showed him the dandelion weed, he looked really upset, but he told me that it was fine if I wanted to pull the weeds, as long as they weren't the display flowers. I explained to him that I wouldn't want to pull the display flowers because I specifically took the dandelions because they were easy to take care of, and I showed him some inspiration pictures and posts I saved of other people who took care of dandelions as indoor plants to make my intentions clear. I told him the fancier flowers are extremely hard for me to grow, and that there were plenty being sold at Lowe's that I could buy instead of plucking theirs. Mr. H said he understood and thanked me for clarifying, but then the lady told me that wasn't what I told her. And she's right. I did fail to fully explain what my intentions were. I simply just asked her if I could have one of the dandelion weeds. But then the older man from before chimed in and told her that it shouldn't matter because they're just weeds, and he seemed really upset on my behalf. He gave me his name and his phone number, and told me if anyone bothers me to let him know because he has daughters, and he wouldn't let anyone talk to his daughters the way she talked to me, and he refused to leave until Mr. H let me go, which he did. And the man's wife was outside waiting, wondering what happened, and I told her what happened, and she said the same thing and gave me her phone number too. Looking back, I think because of my stature and baby face, they thought I was a teenager. I'm 5 feet tall and 80 pounds into my adulthood because I was heavily stressed, sleep-deprived, and malnourished growing up. And as an adult, much of my musculature has atrophied for reasons outside of my control. And some people misconstrue my appearance as being younger. But I mentioned that because when I relayed the story to my roommate, they said the couple wouldn't have made a big deal if they knew I was 26. So that, amongst other factors, makes me think the escalation of the situation was due to my negligence. This all happened last week, and I got a voicemail from the office with an apology on her behalf, and that she was terminated from employment, along with a link to an article about my rights as a tenant that also went over rules, etc. I feel so horrible. I'm genuinely panicking right now. I told my dad and he said it's not my fault, but my roommate said I could have prevented it, which I agree with. AITA? TL. Dire. I took a dandelion weed from my apartment grounds to grow indoors, but faced backlash from the office manager, who said I committed an act of vandalism. The situation escalated. An older man intervened, and the property owner later clarified it was fine to take weeds. The manager was fired, and now I'm guilty and responsible for the outcome. OP is not an AH. Rather, she is very clear and honest in her dealings with the receptionist. That rental office receptionist is an AH for blaming OP and exaggerating things about her, causing OP distress. So, I would rate her 1.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.